You almost certainly have some form of government ID sitting in your home right now. A driver's license, a health card, a passport. You've carried some version of it for most of your adult life. But what most Canadians don't realize is that this same ID is quietly being prepared to live somewhere else as well, online, and not in the distant future. This transition is already underway, piece by piece, system by system, without any major announcement that would make the average person stop and ask questions. This isn't about panic. It isn't about conspiracy. It's about awareness. Because once you understand what Canada's digital ID actually is, who it affects, and how it's being introduced, it becomes clear that this is one of the biggest changes to how Canadians interact with government and essential services in decades. And most people have no idea it's happening. Over the last few years, Canada has been building what's called a digital identity framework. Not a single card, not a mandatory app, but a system that allows your identity to be verified digitally and reused across services. Federal services, provincial services, even private companies. The idea is convenience. Fewer lineups, less paperwork, faster access. And for many people, especially younger Canadians, that sounds perfectly reasonable. But here's the part most people miss. If you've ever logged into a government service using your online banking credentials, you've already participated in digital identity verification. Your bank confirms who you are. That confirmation is accepted by the government. It's been happening quietly for years, and most people barely noticed because it worked. Now provinces are expanding this further. Digital health cards, digital driver's licenses, digital service portals tied to a single verified identity. None of these are mandatory yet, but they're encouraged, promoted as easier, framed as the modern option. And over time, the modern option becomes the expected option. For younger Canadians, this feels natural. Phones already run their lives. Apps are second nature. But for older Canadians, this shift can feel unsettling. Many people are uncomfortable storing critical identity documents digitally. Others worry about technology failures, hacking, or simply being locked out because they forgot a password or lost a device. Those concerns are not irrational. They're practical. Security is often presented as the selling point. Digital ID systems can be very secure when designed properly. Encryption, multi-factor authentication, and fraud detection can outperform physical cards. But digital systems also come with a different kind of risk. When something goes wrong, it doesn't affect one person. It can affect millions at once. A system outage, a breach, a misconfiguration. The scale is entirely different. Another issue that deserves attention is dependency. As more services move online, alternatives still exist, but they become slower, less supported, and harder to access. Paper options don't disappear overnight. They fade. And when that happens, people who struggle with digital systems feel pushed aside, even if no one intended that outcome. This transition also affects families differently. Younger Canadians may adapt quickly and help older relatives navigate systems. But that creates reliance. Parents and grandparents, depending on children to access services, manage accounts, or interpret digital notices. That shift changes independence in subtle but meaningful ways. It's also important to understand that digital ID doesn't stop at government. Private companies are part of this ecosystem. Banks, telecoms, and service providers already hold enormous amounts of personal data. Digital identity systems rely on these institutions because they already verify identities at scale. That means your identity isn't just a government issue. It's part of a broader network. To be clear, Canada is not rolling out a single national digital ID that replaces everything overnight. Physical IDs are not being eliminated tomorrow. No one is being forced to comply under threat of losing rights. Claims like that are misleading. But the real story isn't about force. It's about normalization. Most Canadians won't adopt digital ID because they were told to. They'll adopt it because one service requires it, then another, then another. Eventually, Not having digital access feels like being left behind, even if alternatives technically exist. So what does all of this actually mean for you, sitting at home watching this right now? It doesn't mean panic, and it doesn't mean that Canada suddenly flips a switch tomorrow and everything becomes digital overnight. What it does mean is that the direction is clear. Government services, banking, healthcare, travel, and everyday verification are steadily moving toward digital systems because they're cheaper to run, easier to update, and faster to manage at scale. That shift is already happening whether most people are paying attention to it or not. And for a lot of Canadians, especially older ones, that's where the discomfort comes from. Not because technology is evil, but because change happens faster than people are given time to adjust. If you're worried about digital ID, the most important thing you can do isn't to ignore it or get overwhelmed by worst-case scenarios. It's to stay informed and understand what's optional, what isn't, and where you still have a choice. Digital systems tend to roll out quietly at first, then slowly become the default over time. That's why understanding them early actually gives you more control, not less. Knowing how digital identification works, where it's used, and how your information is stored puts you in a stronger position than pretending it doesn't exist until you're forced to deal with it. This also doesn't mean you suddenly have to abandon physical ID, stop going into banks, or give up face-to-face services. In Canada, transitions like this usually happen gradually, and alternatives tend to exist for a long time. But history shows that once digital systems become widespread, convenience starts to outweigh tradition. Younger generations adapt almost instantly, while older generations are left feeling rushed or left behind. That gap is real, and it's one of the biggest challenges with any major technological shift. The goal shouldn't be to resist change blindly, but to make sure it's implemented in a way that still works for everyone. If digital ID makes you uncomfortable, start small. Learn how your existing online government services work. Understand what information is actually shared and what isn't. Ask questions when something doesn't make sense. And if you're someone who's comfortable with technology, this is where helping family members matters. These systems aren't just about efficiency. They affect independence. The easier it is for people to understand how things work, the less intimidating the future becomes. At the end of the day, digital ID isn't just a piece of technology. It's part of a much larger shift in how society operates. More things online, fewer physical systems, more convenience, but also more dependence on infrastructure that most people never see. Whether you're excited about that or uneasy about it, pretending it isn't happening doesn't stop it. Understanding it does. This isn't about fear. It's about awareness. Because once systems like this are fully built and widely adopted, they don't get rolled back. They just become normal. In years from now, people will look back and wonder when everything quietly changed. That's why conversations like this matter now, while there's still time to understand what's coming and how it fits in everyday life. Thanks for watching. Until next time on Maple Leaf Insider.